You are tuning into The Deal. I'm Danny Brown, and every week I interview the best real estate agents in the world and talk about seven-figure commissions, celebrity and high-profile clients, and the craziest real estate stories you could ever imagine. Enjoy this week's episode.
Hey, Erin, welcome. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Danny. Thanks so much for having me.
Coming live from Nashville. I know there's some exciting things happening, and let's start with the new book. I know you have a book coming out. For those of you that don't know Erin, one of the top agents in the Nashville area for many years, but tell us about what's going on with this book launch.
Well, it'll be everywhere in just a few weeks. It's called Capture the Culture. And it really is, it's not necessarily even a real estate book, even though I think it's going to resonate with a lot of team leads and a lot of real estate agents who want to grow, hire, and have a powerhouse team. But really, this is my story about how I began. I'm a Northern gal that came down to Nashville and didn't know one person and became the top agent in the state and grew this amazing team. But I think what's more important than anything is that our number one asset is culture. And I learned that early on in how to build and retain a great team. And this is my opportunity to kind of share those tips, those tricks, those audits that you have to do with yourself. Because even when you think things are going so well, maybe those team members don't think that. So you need to make sure that you check yourself, make sure that the culture is right. Because when the culture is right, it can 10x your business.
Okay, so Capture the Culture. The launch date is what? What is the release date?
April 3rd.
April 3rd, everyone. Go out and buy it. They can buy it where? Amazon or anywhere?
Books, Barnes and Noble, like all those places. But
can you get it now? Can you pre-order?
You can pre-order now.
So everyone go pre-order this before you listen any further. But starting with your story, a Northerner, where were you born and raised, and how did you end up in Nashville, and how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I grew up right outside of Philadelphia. So I went to a city school, but I grew up on a cattle farm. So I think I have the best of both worlds.
How far is the farm from the city?
Well, I mean, it would be an hour from Philly, but that's normal. I mean, people would just kind of drive an hour into the city. It wasn't a big deal. Kind of like in Nashville, if they get a job on the other side of the city and it's over 20 minutes, they want to move, which keeps me very busy with my clientele. But in Philadelphia, you just kind of stayed in the same house for 20 some years and everything. Right. So that's where I'm from. And, I had a pretty tragic kind of event, and talks about this in the book, that, my parents were killed in a car accident when I was 21.
God,
and it was just my sister and I. And so, at 21 years old, I had to run my parents' business, figure out what I'm going to do. And that was the start of learning how to run a business at such an early age and making decisions. And so it kind of talks about how I kind of meandered and did all this. My background is marketing and advertising. And so, I was, after college, even though the accident happened my senior year in college, I stayed close to home at first and, did marketing and advertising for brands and different things like that. And I went on a business trip to Nashville, and I just saw the city, and I don't know what it was, Danny, but something spoke to me. I said, I have to move here. I don't know what it was. This is 25 years ago.
Yeah. Nashville wasn't a booming, the hottest city to live in at that point.
Had I known what it was going to be, I would have gobbled up as much real estate, even though I didn't have any money at the time. But,
of course.
That's all respect. But I will say that I moved. I went back to my boss and I said, you've got me for 6 more months, but I'm moving to Nashville, Tennessee.
Had you ever been to Nashville before?
Other than this business trip, that was it.
Wow.
But I just knew. There was just something special about this city. I couldn't explain it. I think when you know, and I just knew, and I had to get there.
And how long before you actually arrived to move to Nashville from that moment?
6 months. True to I'm a woman true to my word. 6 months later,
for it.
I went for it.
There was no screwing around. You were just in.
Stated income. I stated my income. I bought a townhouse. I didn't have a job at the time. I was like, I'll figure it out. I was in my 20s, and
you're in your 20s.
I just was going to figure it out.
Holy crap. Well, that's a lot to unpack. I mean, incredible trauma at that stage of your life. So you had to unwind or organize your parents' affairs, including taking over their business. What was the family business at that point?
We had a huge farm where
It was
we,
a farm business.
a lot of animals which still need to be fed. We had employees,
Oh my
and
God.
so just and then obviously family affairs. I mean, trying to dive into your parents' affairs and figuring out what taxes are owed and just and
Everything.
how we're going to sell things and you pay taxes and all of that kind of stuff. It was just a lot
That's
so fast.
insane. Were you the oldest or how
I was, and
you were
that's
the oldest?
why, it was coming the accident happened coming back from my sister's basketball game in
Oh
college.
God.
And so I was the eldest, and so I was held to a different level, and what I can say is that something that I gathered very early on was keep moving forward. Never ask, can this be worse? It always can get worse, right? So you just keep moving forward, and
That's interesting.
perspective is 100% of everything. And
Wow.
I look back now and I say, man, how blessed was I? Like, I had such two great, amazing parents for 21 great years. A lot of people
Grateful for what
say
you
that,
had.
right? And they made my sister and I strong, independent women
Yeah.
who can carry on. And so I use those principles and ideals that I had from a young age, and I 10x them through my career um, to grow my business here in Nashville to a very high level.
Yeah. So incredible. So starting everything with gratitude for what you have, not what you've lost,
Sure.
which unbelievable considering, what you had lost at such a young age. So you're in Nashville now, a young woman in her 20s. You had
Yeah.
no network, I assume, because you didn't
I
have
did not know.
friends or
Other than my
family.
real estate agent, I didn't know anybody.
Were you went and got a real estate agent, a real estate license immediately? Like, how did you get to real
No.
estate?
No, because I was in advertising marketing. I
Right.
didn't never, I never thought about doing real estate. So I worked at an ad agency. My
Okay.
specialization was luxury jewelry and footwear. As a 20-year-old, I loved it, right? Doing ad campaigns in Nashville.
Shoes,
It was great. It was great.
jewelry,
I
shoes, why
when the
not?
10-carat diamond ring would come into the office, I'd be like, "Let me
Oh my
try it
God.
on first," right? So
That's
that was exciting, and then I got recruited from that ad agency to be the marketing and licensing manager for a children's toy company. So I did a lot of negotiation deals for licensing deals for Marvel,
sure.
Nickelodeon,
Big
all that.
corporate stuff, big
Mhm.
business.
And I really cut my teeth negotiating those deals, as a young 20-year-old.
Yes.
And
That's great
so
experience.
yeah, it was a great experience, and I was doing commercials, and marketing is the foundation of everything that we do in real estate anyways.
Sure.
And
In all
so it was
business,
just
yeah.
such a great wheelhouse to be able to learn and then bring that into real estate. But one day my boss asked me to do something that I didn't think was on the up and up, and that was to plagiarize a competitor's commercial.
Oh, God.
And I told him, "You're going to have my resignation by the end of the day," because he kept pressing and pressing. And here's this 50-year-old man. I'm in
Yeah.
my 20s. And I said, "No, at the end of the day, you only have your name. You'll have my
Right.
resignation by the end of the day." I walked down the hallway. He said, "What are you going to do, Erin?" And I turned around and I don't know what came over me, but I said, "I'm going to go into real estate." And he laughed. 6 years later, I ran into him and he says, "Erin, I see your signs everywhere.
Good.
I feel like I'm responsible." And I just laughed and I just smiled and I said, "You absolutely were. Have a great
Yeah.
day. See you later."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, your sleazy ways forced me to make a decision. Well, that just shows how principled you are, and you stood by your principles even though you were, in theory, female in your 20s. This is a male, he's senior 50s, new city, and this guy's pressuring you, and you said,
Right.
I'm not having it.
No,
And
not
that just speaks volumes in itself. So now you spit out real estate. Come on, you had to have some passion or something that made you think real estate. Did you like design? Did you like open houses? Were you in designing your own house? You're like, why real estate? Could have been anything.
Sure. So my dad, I grew up in a farm family, and as properties around the farm came available, my parents would invest and then they'd buy them, right? And so like I saw that, and I just thought
Okay.
knowledge was power. And so I had always a love for real estate, and in fact, during this time I was getting my real estate license, but not to sell real estate. I just have this like thing about knowledge is power. So I wanted to
Okay.
be an investor one day. I wanted to get my license. I was never going to represent myself, but I just wanted to know more. And
There you
so
go.
I was in the middle of doing that when all of this came about. And so it was just like the most perfect timing. And even though I love marketing and that's what I was doing, I really think there was a greater purpose for me and how this all came about, because then I found my true joy, which is real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about the early days of real estate. Now, first, you had a huge marketing background, and corporate background. Sounds like you had tremendous life experience emotionally as well at that such a young age. And now you're starting in Nashville real estate. I know, like you said, Nashville today is much more like Beverly Hills than it is like the rest of Tennessee, but
Yeah,
still, it's Nashville. It was always Nashville. It's still a big market. What were
sure.
the challenges like? What was the market like? And let's walk through those first year or 2 or 3 as you're building a business in Nashville.
Yeah, my first deal was 800,000, which I think was considered luxury in Nashville at the time.
Okay,
And I did
800,000
my
is lux.
first deal against this powerhouse agent here in Middle Tennessee, and I said, "I'm not gonna let him know this is my first deal,"
Okay.
and I walked away and I thought, "Man, this is easy, right? This is
The
easy."
first one was easy.
And then the recession hit me like square in the face.
Okay.
Um,
Ooh,
and
not so
so
easy anymore, is it?
so easy, not so easy. And I didn't have a really great SOI. I knew people, but I didn't know a lot of people. And so, I just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy leads. I'm going to cold call. I'm going to do whatever it
Oh,
needs,
okay.
it takes. So I just did something that was different, and I made these leads and converted these leads into lifelong clients of mine that were my real estate
Wow.
ninjas telling everybody about me.
Yeah, so
And
that
I
became your PR, your
exactly, that
own
was my
past
calling
clients.
card. Yeah,
Wait a
absolutely.
second. So buying leads in 2025 with Zillow and Redfin is one thing, but it sounds like you're talking recession, '09, 2010. I don't even know if Zillow was launched yet or just launched.
No, I
What
wasn't even a Zillow buyer at that
so
point.
what are leads that look like then? What is an online lead look? Who was selling leads
They
then?
Yeah, there were just a whole bunch of different sources that I looked into, and I think I was probably paying like $200 or $300 a lead or something
Yeah.
like that. And I remember specifically one of the leads um, was one of my team members' father, and she was 11 years old at the time.
Oh,
And he said to me, "I'm down. I'm part of the Mars relocation because Mars was coming out of Jersey and they were moving down to Tennessee. They were moving their
okay.
headquarters down." And he says, "I've got 2 days to find a house. Will you
Oh,
be able to do it?" And I said, "Absolutely."
sign me
His,
up. I'm in.
exactly. His wife and I hit it off and sold them a house. And of course, I remember their two daughters, which reminded me of my sister and I. And Laura, the eldest, reminded me just of myself. But she will
Amazing.
say to
Yeah.
this day that she was a little mean to me because I was, the one that was making them move or whatever. Little did she know she'd be on my team later and a complete boss lady,
So
right?
she's
And
now working for you full circle. That's
oh my God,
incredible.
she's
Shout
she's
out.
amazing, and she was in college when she was doing her internship, and I called her mom and I said, what does Laura do? I knew she wants to go to law school, and she says she's doing something at some daycare or whatever. I said, what does that have to do like for intern? I said, have her call me. I made her quit
Yeah.
her job. I made her come work for me as compliance coordinator slash intern, whatever.
Right.
I said, I'll help you, get into law school, all those things. She went up to DC to do a law program or whatever, and called me and said, "You know what? It's not for me, Erin. I want to come back." And I said, "I've got a job for you." I put her into transaction management. Then she got her license. Now she's been with me for
Superstar.
years. She's just under 30 now. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She will probably, if she wants to, one day she'll run my team.
She's a killer.
She's a killer.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Well, let's hear a little bit about what your team and business looks like now over the last year or two. Obviously, it took a long time to get where you are brick
Yeah.
by brick, but let's kind of give people an idea. You have a massive book of business. I know you have a team.
Yeah.
Nashville has sort of exploded with a lot of Californians, others too, but a lot of Southern Californians
Yeah.
escaping LA and other areas to get to Nashville and a few other markets. But what is it like now? Give us a little rundown of what the business is like and what it's looking like as your team set up. And
Yeah. So our business has really changed since COVID. That's when Nashville luxury has changed as well.
yeah,
So to put that in perspective, in 2019, there was one home that had closed the first $10 million listing. Okay.
one. Yeah.
Yes. Last year we had I think there were 11, and we did 5 or 6 of them ourselves.
Wow,
Um,
50% market share over 10. And there's 11, and it was one. That was only 5 years ago, 6 years.
Yeah. So that kind of just shows you how big and how quick the luxury market has changed here. I'm getting ready to put on a $30 million listing.
30.
Yeah. And I mean, it has a helicopter pad, 120 acres, creeks, several
Incredible.
different, barns and homes. It's extraordinary. But that's the way that our market has changed. So it takes a village to do what we do. And it comes from a great team. So obviously I'm the team lead, I'm the founder, CEO, probably janitor, all the things that
Yeah,
you can
all of it. All of it.
everything, right? But I do have a director of operations, Sarah Dascom. She's amazing. And then I have two kind of listing transaction managers there between Christy and Jen. And we've got a marketing manager, Molly. She's amazing. We always have at least an intern or two, depending upon the season, to help with running and just they get to learn and be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our agent base. So we have 8 licensed agents.
That are
2, which I was
selling.
telling you before, were on maternity leave last year. We have an all-female team, so that does happen occasionally. And we
Yeah.
had our best year yet at 225 million that was sold.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
impressive. It's a massive business. What is the highest sale? What's the biggest sale that's been in Nashville?
This past year, I believe it was 48 million.
Oh my God. What,
Yeah.
did you sell it?
I wish.
What was the commission on 48 million? It's probably $1 million
He
commission or
double
more.
ended it, so lucky him.
Lucky him. It's probably 2 million. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How many sales over 20 have there been? Is it like every year
Not
there's
very many.
yeah.
Last year we had a really interesting year. We had a 42 million. We had a 28 million.
Woo.
Those were the only two that were all over 20. And then this year, hopefully I'll sell my my 30 million one that we're getting ready
You
to
will
launch.
sell it.
Yeah,
You will
yeah.
sell it.
So
Now, my
we
client
will
bought Reese's house here, and I remember the hype of, well, obviously she was a Nashville person forever, but when that happened, I was like, oh God, she's going there. People, it was COVID. People are going to Nashville. Everyone's leaving LA. And I mean, talk to me about some of the areas, the submarkets. I've spent some time there. We had the Compass Retreat there now, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It was just beautiful. The acreage and the greenery. And I mean, the city's cool, it's Nashville, but like getting outside within 10, 15, 20 miles. Talk to me about some of these high-end areas and what the vibe is and who's living there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Nashville is great because we're not impeded by a lake or an ocean or anything like that, so we can grow the city out. And I specialize in Davidson County, which is Nashville proper, all the affluent suburbs there, and then we moved south. So Brentwood, Franklin, Leapers Fork. I do a tremendous amount in Leapers Fork. That is where a lot of entertainers are
Jack
there.
White, doesn't he live there in there?
There are several musicians that are out that way.
Justin Timberlake, Jack White, Taylor Swift. She's based out of there too.
Yep. There's so many people. And then the great thing is that like they don't need to worry about paparazzi. You can spot, run into Nicole Kidman, when you're getting coffee and nobody cares.
How about Keith? Does anyone care about him?
Just
Nicole.
Nicole Kidman.
They might care more about Keith than Nashville.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where
so it's low pro. No one's bothering anybody, and that's why it's attracting people like that.
Yeah,
and live their lives.
Private. It's private. You have major acreage, and it's just the one thing that I have noticed that so many Californians who are making, I say that the California convoy out to
the
Nashville,
pilgrimage,
if you will,
to Texas and Nashville. It's both Texas and Tennessee.
It is. They're always looking at Texas as well. It's just the wide open spaces. I think there's the ability to just kind of breathe a little bit more, take a little bit slower pace. Even though I don't feel as though we're really too slow anymore. It's kind of a revved up city. I used to think that coming from Philadelphia, but it's definitely stepped up. I mean, we have so many companies. I mean, Oracle is doing their headquarters here. We have the regional, Amazon that's here. So many companies every other day are coming to Nashville, which is just making our city not only a dynamic city, but also an international city. I recently sold the grand penthouse at the Four Seasons, which was a historic sale because it put us on the map at nearly $4,000 a square foot.
$4,000 a foot.
Yes. So to put that in perspective, We're not cheap Nashville. I mean, we've got
No.
a lot of amazing luxury properties there. Not to say that we're not affordable. We do have areas that are affordable and up and coming, which I think lends its hand to something that's like still a growing city, which people see that, and they want to be a part of it.
How big was that penthouse for 4,000 a foot? What did it trade for?
It was like, I don't know, what was it, 3,700 or
It was a
3,800
big
square feet.
number.
Yeah.
Big 15, $16 million penthouse at the Four Seasons.
Yeah, I sold it. I sold
It
it
sounds like Beverly
before it went
Hills.
on the market, the day
So
before it went live. I
good
put
for
a little
you.
pressure there.
What
Yeah.
was the commission on that?
It was good, 3% off for me.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty good. Thank you very much.
yeah.
That's gotta be I can't count. 5,
But it's
6, 700
interesting,
grand.
agents say, "Oh, you sold that off market one day before it was hitting the market." Yeah, it took 20 years to get there.
20 years, right.
20 years to arrive at the table, and people
Correct.
need to remember that's what real estate is. It's about expertise, knowing your agents, knowing the ones to call. This was not about, as much local agents as it was talking about it when I was at a dinner in San Diego with powerhouse agents that sell $50 million properties. Like
Yeah.
this is, the most amazing thing about our industry is just it's who you know and talking about the properties, and they know somebody who knows somebody, and it's just when magic happens.
Absolutely, and you love when you hear that from a client or something. Like, you only had it for a week and you sold it in a month. This I'm like, well, actually, like you said, it's been 20 plus years of grinding and building relationships, skill sets to know at the right moment what dots to connect and what levers to pull to make this magic happen. It's not overnight. It never
Absolutely.
is. And if you didn't
Absolutely.
have all those components together, coming together, it all would blow up and not happen anyway. So it
Well,
just
absolutely. And I think I signed that listing agreement in November of 23, but it was a white box that was being completely, built out.
yeah,
And so there were moments where I could have shown it. I could have put it out there as a build with the rendering and things like that. But that's not the highest and best, way for my seller. It's better
right.
to unveil it. I invested into staging it. And, we didn't have a lot of stagers that could bring furniture that could be
That level.
doable for $15 million property. So I gave her my checkbook and I said, go to market and get some furniture. And they also bought the furniture, which was great as well. So,
Awesome. Well, how about some fun who are some high profile people that you can speak about that you've sold or been involved with transacting in real estate?
well, I mean, listen, privacy is a big thing, but I want to say
I
that
get it.
a lot of musicians,
Yeah,
not
sure.
just even country, but like rock. We have a ton of people,
Yeah.
within rock that are here. Also, a ton of athletes. We do a lot of athletes that come from all over the place. And so I think between our musicians and our athletes, but I will say that, one thing that I am just so impressed with over the past year and a half are the captains of industry. I mean, some of
Yeah,
these billionaires that are coming into the area,
sure.
these great entrepreneurs that it would blow your mind to know, you know, who's looking in this area. I mean, in the penthouse when I showed an Oscar winner. You would have never thought that, and this person, like everybody knows who it is. You would have
Yeah.
never thought they were looking in Tennessee,
Yeah.
but they were. And that's the thing
Tennessee.
about it is Nashville is so much more than what people think. And when they get there, they're hooked.
Yeah, it's really become an international city, and it is for sure. Any crazy, funny, weird real estate stories that you can share that come to mind where you're like, man, that's like this doesn't happen often.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you the penthouse story and then I'll tell you another one. So,
Okay, great.
the gentleman who ended up buying it, is public record. So he's a billionaire, but he came with his chief of staff and he just, came at 5:15. There were several people that I had lined up to kind of look at this listing before it was on the open market.
Okay.
And he looks at me and he turns around and he goes, Erin, I love it. I'd like to come back at 10:15 tonight to see the penthouse because, I want to see how loud it is on the 40th floor. We're at the grand penthouse on the very
Yeah.
top. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. Well, the blood's draining from my face because it's CMA Fest weekend.
Ah,
Is
it's
the
the loudest
loudest
weekend.
weekend in Nashville history. And I'm like, I'm going to lose this at
Yeah.
10:15 tonight. But I decided do a little distraction instead of that, which is, I was waiting with the other agent down there with his agent. down by the bar. I told the bartender who has seen me there all these months working. He said, Erin, are you going to sell the penthouse? I said, I'm going to try. And I said, I need your help. I said, after I leave the lobby, bring a bottle of Dom and 6 glasses up to the penthouse for me. Tipped him really, really good. The agent and I walked up there with the buyer all the way up to the 40th floor. When we got there, the lights were still on from my previous showing after them. And we walked in, and I immediately hit the lighting system to turn out all the lights. So the city lit up.
City lights are booming.
And he started just, hooting and hollering and just saying, this is amazing. Look at this view. Oh my goodness, all the things. I turned on the lights. He said, Erin, I'm going to make this really great for you, and make a great offer for tomorrow morning. You'll get something. And I immediately heard a knock on the door, and it was my bartender from downstairs.
Champagne. Here's the Dom.
I looked at the buyer and I said, since you're going to send me a good offer, and I winked, I said, let's celebrate. And so we ended up having some champagne in the penthouse. That was a fun little moment there. And
that is a beautiful moment and a nuanced approach. And just there's so much to learn just hearing how a true expert and baller handles a high pressure, challenging situation.
Absolutely. And there was
staying
another
calm
one.
And cool.
Absolutely. There was another one that I had this property. It was really quite extraordinary. I ended up getting this property in Leapers Fork. It was at a very high altitude, so you could see for 30 miles. It had an infinity pool that just looked out. The views were insane. The only issue with this listing is that I was getting it in the dead of winter in December when all the leaves are gone. So it's the ugliest time of year.
Got it. There's no color in the trees.
Exactly. But you know what? I'm going to go for it. So they bought the home for $3 million 2 years previously, put $1 million into it. So all in at $4 million. I look at comps, this is, in the middle of the height of the market of the COVID convoy, if you will, and all of the people coming in. And I said to my client, I said, listen, I think that we can sell this at 6 million. And he goes, what? And I was like, yeah, we can do 6 million. He said, okay, great. So as we start preparing, I bring in the stager. The interior was fabulous. They did a great job, but they didn't have any exterior. There's so many porches, and I wanted to have a stager come in and do all the exterior porches.
The outdoor
space.
She has
such a great following that she was doing some Instagramming and tagging me, and my Instagram started blowing up. How much is this? She just showed the views. So I went back to my seller and I said, listen, I think that we're, at a moment here where I think we need to push it. And he goes, what do you mean push it? And I said, we need to increase the price. He goes, I don't know, Erin, I overpriced a house in Chicago. I've got PST from it. I don't know. I said, listen, just trust me. That's the one thing about this market. I feel it. Like, I just know it. So we put it up at 7. Okay. We went live at 7 million.
Yes.
So I go out and I do this whole big coming soon push and all this. I have a stacked up showing list for the first day. What's beautiful about this listing is you can stand on the back porch and you can see the driveway, which people are driving up. And I stack these appointments pretty close together. My first appointment of the day, the agent sent me I did an e-blast out and just our Compass agents, and he forwarded the email back from his client that says, I'd pay 10 million for this. I was like, oh, noted.
Yeah.
But we did have lots of different showings scheduled for that day, but they got the first one. Well, when we were in there, the buyer looked at me and saw the car coming up because they spent a good hour at the property.
Yeah.
Said, how much to not let them come in? And I said, I need an offer. How good is the offer? And the agent said, it's written up. And I said, okay, 8.2 million.
Wow. Was this a California buyer or what?
They spent some time in California. They were from the Midwest originally, but they were already in Tennessee in a temporary home. So a lot of people that were waiting for that big estate to pop up.
They had already moved and they were waiting for the right opportunity.
Exactly. Just
That's
waiting.
Insane. The stuff you hear there, it's so similar to any big luxury market, like LA or New York or Miami or any of the others. So you have a lot going on and you're juggling this big business. Talk to me about how you balance your personal life. I don't know what your family life looks like, but your social life, your personal life, your interests, your business. Do you have some sort of routine in the morning that gets you organized or routine at night? Talk to us a little bit about that. How does Erin keep this all together?
Well, first of all, I really love what I do and I'm super passionate about it. In fact, I put my feet down on the ground every single day, and I am really, truly blessed to be able to do what I do. So I don't look at it as a job. This is a career. And for that reason, I just never think about the money. I never think about it.
That's
And I
nice.
actually am in my business quite a bit because I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
But I section out time in my calendar. It's called Erin time, and
Aaron
my
time.
admin team knows this. This is where it's on the do not disturb, and from 6 to 7 a.m. it's on Erin time, and that's not to buy because come 7:01 my phone starts
Goes
blowing
nuts.
up. Right?
Don't bother me at 6:57.
Sometimes that happens, but it's on do not disturb, so I'm not going to hear it. But that's the time for me to go to the gym, organize my calendar, sit down, read a book, listen to a podcast, like just me time to
Yeah.
just calibrate and get ready for the day. I think that's really, really important to just
You're
center
very
yourself.
structured around that morning block of that hour.
Absolutely, absolutely. So those are just certain things that I do to time block to be able to get the best out of it because I do run a very
Sure.
tight schedule and I'm just going from meeting to meeting to meeting. I mean, I think the more business you're doing, it feels like you're in meetings and conference calls all the time. It's just
Yeah,
part of
you
the
are.
business. But I love what I do, so I'm in the business a lot. There's a lot of people that I coach and I work with that, they don't want to be in the business anymore and that's completely fine. I think success and what your ultimate goal is up to you of how you define that. You're writing, your life and how you want this to be. And so you have to kind of figure out what that is and then hire the who's that are going to make the how happen, if you will. Like get a great team and hire a great team. And like that's
Yeah.
why like I wrote the book that I have because there's a whole list about how to hire people, what questions to ask to
Oh,
kind of like
I
make
need to
sure you
read
get the right.
this. Capture the culture. We need to get this now.
Yes. Pre-order.
So that's part of it. How about travel? Do you ever take time to tune out and travel, or you just can't do it?
Nope, I take my team on a trip
Oh,
every
that's
year
great.
because if they hit their goals, they'll go somewhere in the Caribbean or Mexico or
Oh,
whatever. It's all expense
awesome.
paid. But then my husband and I always cut out. We go to Europe for 2 weeks every year, which is always so nice. And
Fun.
then we'll do some little mini trips here. I also have a lake house about 2 hours away, and I tell you, I own a lot of real estate, but that's the most valuable piece of real estate to me because when I see water, when I go there, right when I dip over that driveway, for some reason my cell service isn't the best. Oh
Yeah,
no.
of
So
course.
it's kind of like just that moment to kind of like
Like
relax a
cool
little bit
where
and
everything
unwind.
goes down.
Yeah, and it just does the body good, it does your mind good, and it resets you. And
Love
my
it.
team members are so respectful of that time when I am able to break away, and the fact that they have me covered is the best.
It's so important, and it just seems to be a thread with all people that carry a huge load that you have to have a daytime blocking, whether it's morning, night, during the day, like you, and then the getaway, tune out for a week or 2 or 3 on vacation. Otherwise, you can't perform at the highest level. You need to recover like an athlete. You need to recover. You need daily
Absolutely.
recovery. You need weekend short recoveries. Then you need the long block. Where do you guys like to go in Europe? Do you go to the same place every year? Do you try new things every year?
Well, it just really depends. Like we're gonna go to Switzerland this coming year. We like London. We'll do a couple like offshoot. We've done the like London, Prague, Paris. Like we've done the whole Italy thing.
So
And
you
so we
do a
change
lot of different you try different places.
we change it up. Yep,
That's
we just
fun.
change it up. We love to travel. We're foodies. My husband is a big history buff, so he'll bring me to every museum in town. I'm
Oh,
like scanning. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Let's go to
you're
the
done.
next
You're worn down, and he wants to keep going. You're ready for a latte and a croissant and a glass of wine, and he's
100. I'm
got
a
one
people
more
watcher.
art gallery to go to, one
Absolutely.
more.
I'm like, I want to look at all the buildings and just
Yeah,
sit and take
chill.
it in. Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
chill. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Well, I know I wanna be, respectful of your time. I know you're busy, but, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear sort of your advice for real estate agents, whether it's a veteran agent that's just trying to get out of a rut or trying to get on a hot streak, or a newer agent that's building their business. What do you think are some important things that you would say, "Hey, look, you gotta focus on this 1 or 2 things?"
So there's two things that I think that every agent needs to know. And I think that you need to write down what is your why? What do you really want to accomplish? Because you can create, I heard somebody say one time to put your goals in pen and your pathway in pencil. And
I
so
like
if
that.
you put down your why, and then you can kind of figure out the path, but the path can always be
Could
redirected.
change.
Okay. It can change depending upon economics, all the different things. So that's going to be first. Figure out what your why
The
is. And
North
then let's
Star, your
figure out,
why, your
yeah,
purpose, and what gets you
exactly. So
going.
figure that out. Second thing is you need to get a mentor. Okay. So you get a mentor. And if whether it's joining a team, getting a coach, just asking a mega agent to coffee, or seeing if you can kind of do their open houses to kind of learn a little bit more from them. People are willing to help, but you have to ask. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to ask. And
Good
so I
point.
just tell my agents, buckle up, Buttercup, because I'm going 110 miles an hour. And if you want to jump in, you got to jump in my car. You got to come to a listing appointment. I'm willing to share. So, but you got to jump in the moving vehicle. Let's go.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Buckle your chin strap. That's what they used to say in football practice. Get
There
ready
you
for
go.
collisions. We're going hard and we're going fast. I love it. Well, open mic, anything else you want to add to this wonderful conversation? And hopefully I'll get to see you. Are you going to Denver?
I am going to
Yeah, so I
Denver.
haven't
Yeah,
booked it, but I've been planning on going there. So hopefully we'll get to have a lunch or breakfast there.
I would
But
love that.
anything else you want to add before we go? This has been so informative and great to catch
Well,
up.
the only thing I'm going to leave you with is like a little bit of mindset here. I mean, I
Yes, bring it
want
on.
so somebody, and this is also in the book, but like one of my wonderful women on my team said that some days in real estate are like dirt, but most days are diamonds. And if we
Woo.
learn that, if we have our positive pants on and we have our mindset, we
I'm going to
will.
program that.
You need to, because
Diamonds, not
diamonds are
dirt.
just so important. Think
I'm
about this.
seeing dirt and toilets and termites and
No,
mold.
it's
Oh, wait, get
diamonds,
that out of
baby. Come
there.
on, Danny. Diamonds. So
Diamonds,
just
baby.
remember that, because you're brilliant, you're strong, you're hardcore, just like a diamond,
Love it.
right? So just remember that. And people just need to know what their worth is, especially in this ever changing real estate world, and really hone our skills.
You got it. Well, you heard it here first. Go pick up Capture the Culture.
That's
Coming out
right.
April. You got it. You heard it here first. Great to chat with you. Thank you for sharing. And hopefully I'll see you in Denver soon.
You'll see me.
You rock. That was
Thanks,
awesome.
Erin.
Thank you for your time. Hopefully you get on your call and do it. But that was perfect. Loved it.
Awesome. You're the
So
best. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Appreciate
I
the
hope we catch
opportunity.
up soon.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you like what you heard and you love real estate as much as we do, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review and a comment. That would help our ratings so much. If you want to hear more episodes, you can go to The Deal with Danny Brown on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere else you consume your podcasts.